What's happening, folks? Geologist Philip Prince talking about LiDAR today. Got a lot of requests about this after the last Boulder video. People asking, can anybody look at this LiDAR imagery that you show? Yes, to some extent. Now, what you're looking at here, this is LiDAR imagery that's from the U.S. Geological Survey, but I've processed it up and put it into Google Earth. You have to have GIS processing software to do that, but there are ways to see this just from the map view, the plan view top down. Going to talk about that in this video. You can do it just with a web browser. It's pretty easy, and it does allow you to quite literally make discoveries like the big thing you're looking at here. This is a huge landslide. This is in Southwest Virginia, a little bit west of Roanoke. It's on Catawba Mountain, and about a 1,300-foot wide, like a 400-meter wide piece of the side of this mountain fell off in the fairly recent geologic past, produced this huge pile of debris here. Nobody knew about this before LiDAR came out. There's houses built all over it, which is fine. But in terms of understanding how this landscape might work and do things like this even exist, what do they mean? What caused them? Nobody even knew to ask those questions. And one of the reasons for that is that if you get rid of the LiDAR there, and I'll try to move slowly enough here with the screen recorder. Sometimes things get kind of grainy and slowed down. Without that LiDAR, it's just another slope in the forest with trees on it. Like you don't really have reason to even think about what might be there. Why is the mountain a little bit steeper at the top here and things like that. So having this imagery really has revolutionized how people study geology, and it's only been in the last few years that it's become more readily available. Now, again, to get the kind of interactive, fade it in and out easily, turn it around really easily interface like I'm using here, you do need some software to mess with it, right? But it's possible for you to get something pretty good. And again, we'll move around here and try to let it catch back up to us before we leave the area here. It's possible to get something pretty good, just as long as you have wireless. That's all you need, or internet access of any type, right? It does pull a lot of data, so it'll make the most, I guess, out of your internet bill. But you can have perspectives like you're seeing here, basically like looking straight down onto the landscape. You can see it with hillshade like this, and you can see it at a resolution that is basically what you're looking at here, right? So how would you do that? Well, take yourself to whatever search engine that you like. I put it in Google here, and I typed in the National Map Viewer. I'll zoom in, see those words there. National Map Viewer. That's what you're going to need there. Probably don't even need the on it, I would imagine. Get a bunch of hits here. That's the one you want. It's a .gov site. Going to get that screen, and then you're going to see North America pop up here. Okay. What you want to do is come up to the top. You're going to see these 3 stacked squares, the layer list. Drop that guy down. Come down here to 3-depth elevation hillshade. Give that a check, and that's going to turn North America gray back there. That's that LiDAR hillshade overlaid across it. And then tell it where you want to go. We'll go to Catawba, Virginia, which is where we started this video out right there. Start zooming in, and again, we'll try to move slowly enough to give everything time to catch up. You got the 2 there for Cove Mountain. Apparently, a bunch of people saw a 5 in that. I guess I kind of see a 5 now. Y'all ruined it for me. I was on the 2 for like 8 years or something like that. Whatever. We'll go east of it. Something everybody can agree on. There's the couple of landslides that the video kicked off with. You can see them pretty clearly being even this zoomed out, but we'll get in really close to it here, give it a chance to catch up. And that's the same resolution that you're gonna get if you download this data and process it with GIS software. Now, again, you're looking straight down. You can't tilt this, but you can see quite a bit. You can count every sandstone layer in there if you want to. You can clearly see the Appalachian Trail up here, which is kind of a cool tidbit. Right at the tip of my pointer right there, that little line going across the slope is actually the Appalachian Trail, and it's just a foot trail here. You know, maybe two people could pass each other if their packs weren't too big. So it's quite small, and it is very, very easy to see. So the amount of resolution that you get here is incredibly impressive. And all of Southwest Virginia, in fact, almost all of this the Commonwealth of Virginia, to be correct, has this quality of LiDAR uploaded to the USGS today, as far as I know. A lot of other states have it as well. For the bouldering types out there, we'll go to Horse Pins, Alabama. Uh, it'll fly you right to it. Zoom in there, and there you go. Big boulder field on this sandstone cap rock here. So the resolution is pretty comparable to what you saw there in Virginia. Different states tend to have a little bit of variation, but this is quite good. And in fact, a lot of Alabama's USGS LiDAR is quite good. The landscapes around here are really cool to look at. Some of this valley and ridge structural geology and the plateaus that it makes are just absolutely fascinating. And when you zoom in, you know, you can expect to receive a really incredible amount of detail when you do that. Like, we can go look at these cliff lines here, and you can see that these don't really have that large of boulder accumulations here for whatever reason. Some details of the geology there preventing it from making the really huge boulders that you do see elsewhere in this area. But everything you're seeing here is just straight off the internet. You can be sitting up in, you know, McDonald's or whatever you like, looking at exactly what we're looking at right now, which is really incredible. There's been no time in human history that it has been possible to look at the surface of the earth like this, anyone, whenever you want. So it's very exciting to actually engage with this if you get the chance. Let's go out west now. Some of the western states that are monster huge compared to East Coast states don't seem to have always like the highest quality stuff on the USGS. Wyoming is pretty good though. Fly out to Sheridan, Wyoming, there, just east of the Bighorns. There, it's kind of a cool part of the world. Some of these Western geo YouTube people are going to wonder what I'm doing out here. I'm just visiting. Don't worry about it. Going to go to where this big highway comes down off the Bighorn, like 14 or something like that. I don't know. You can see the road right there. The reason we're going here is to look at this really cool landslide. There's two really big ones. I think one of these is referred to as the Buffalo Tongue, and there's like the Tongue River that comes down off the mountains here. But this is a really exceptional feature to look at with LiDAR. On the subject of boulders and things like that, there's a big chunk of rock right there. That's about 500 feet long, about 150 meters long. It's kind of moving with this greater landslide deposit, so it's a little bit different from a single boulder that traveled many times its own width down a steep slope or something like that. But this big landslide came down. It actually dammed up the stream here, and it has accumulated sediment behind it, and the stream now kind of cascades down across the bottom of the slide there. Really cool to see details like that just live like this without the ground cover obstructing what's underneath it. And you can, through the national map viewer, turn on what's essentially like Google Earth. So you can see what the land cover is going to look like in this location. And in every case, just about, unless it's an absolute completely arid landscape, you're going to see quite a bit more, of course, with the LiDAR. And go over here to like this Steamboat Point area. You can see all these little boulders that are littering the slope there. And sure enough, you can zoom in, and the resolution is going to come right with you. So this is cool to see out here in a western state like Wyoming. And I presume that you can look at the entire state like this if you want to. Let's go somewhere totally different. Go to Avery Island, Louisiana. Kind of an unusual destination there. Very geologic place. This is where they make Tabasco sauce. Tabasco sauce is a very geologic sauce because it's made on a salt dome. That's what this little raised elevated area is here. That's what Avery Island is. It's actually where deep layers of geologic salt are being loaded by the huge accumulation of sediment above them down there along the Gulf Coast. The load of that sediment is like squeezing the salt up and out, and it's lifting the layers that are still on top of it. So that is what a salt dome is. And Avery Island is an outstanding example, but you can do one better in places like this where the topographic relief is a little bit lower, right? So we're going to go down here to hillshade stretched. Turn on hillshade stretched, and you're going to get what's essentially just an exaggerated view of the topography in the land. And suddenly Avery Island looks like a really big mountain or something like that, you know. And if you zoom out, it's got neighbors down here. There's a number of these little salt domes right in the line. And up here at Lake Pannier, that's where underground salt mining collapsed, and this lake above it kind of like drained into the passages. There's a bunch of videos of that online. You know, looking over here at like these rivers. This is a pretty interesting thing to do with the stretched hillshade. You know, actually looking at kind of meandering landforms and bars and things like that. So it's really cool to try out the different functions that you get on the USGS here. Another good place to go. Plenty of Carolina Bay talk on this YouTube channel. Allendale, South Carolina is a really cool place to look at Carolina Bays. Now, keep in mind that we're still in the stretched hillshade here, but sure enough, when you zoom into Allendale with stretched hillshade, you're going to see something pretty interesting. Landscape's absolutely full of these little depressions. A lot of them have water in them. Sometimes they're just swamps, but they all have kind of the same size and shape and general trend, which in this area is just a little bit off of north-south. You can't put color with this very easily through the USGS. So you're always going to be looking at this hillshade. Some people have problems with it inverting, like you can't tell what's high or low. And sometimes that does happen with the black and white here. If you zoom in and out, it tends to make that better. Now, what would this look like if you turned off the hillshade stretched and just turned on the regular hillshade? Um, Not anything nearly so interesting. So being able to have the stretched versus the regular hillshade is pretty important, depending on where you want to explore with this tool. Until I have fun with this. Let's do one more, and then we'll jump out to another tool. We go to High Knob, Illinois. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me. You don't really think about rocks and cliffs when you think of Illinois. At least I don't. But certainly in southern Illinois, it's actually quite a bit of rough, kind of cliffy topography here. And this thing's really, really cool. Jointed fractured sandstone. Again, kind of like the boulder video, you got these intersecting sets of weaknesses in the rock, kind of breaking it apart. Surely looks like somebody came along and chipped that out of there. Trust me, they didn't. This is how geology works in rock that has been stressed. And like I said in the other video, you could tunnel down inside of this and see comparable fracturing patterns. So it's very much a part of the rock here. What would you see in this if you turn the imagery back on? Not nearly as much, of course. You can kind of see the cliffs there a little bit. It's mostly forested, and that's why being able to toss that LiDAR on there is really interesting. You can do this over a huge part of the country and quite literally discover something maybe that no one has ever really looked at or thought about. So it's a really neat tool to mess with. There's another one. Not every state serves that high resolution like we've been looking at there. West Virginia has its own viewer, and in this case, you would want to type in West Virginia landslide tool. All right, so this is up there in the search bar there. Type that in, it'll work. You'll get a link there. It's going to start off looking kind of like a national map there. You're going to end up with a different starting screen here, of course, because fundamentally this is like a landslide inventory. Come over here to the stacked squares at the left. And if you don't want to look at that landslide layer yet, you can turn that off. It's actually cool to look at. It's quite a lot of slope movement in West Virginia. You want to come up here to the upper right. Now you got the 4 squares here. Drop that down. Hillshade or slope shade. We've been looking at hillshade so far. Slope shade makes things look a little more metallic, but the landscape is more evenly lit. So if you want to see a northwest slope that looks really bright in hillshade, you'd want to turn on that slope shade. But we'll keep it to the hillshade here. Check out our let's go to Cooper's Rock. I know somebody mentioned that in another video. Cooper's Rock, West Virginia. State Forest. I know how to do it. It'll zoom you back out in this particular case, and you'll have to zoom it back in. We'll go ahead and do that. Give it time here to kind of slow down and catch up. And in this case, you got the Cheat River cutting into the land here, and all of these really, really cool sandstone cliffs with boulders all around it. So we'll be sure that has time to load up. This again is about 1 meter resolution. It probably has a ruler tool in it that you can actually use to measure the boulders here. I'm not going to search around for that right now, but again, the detail that you're going to get out of the landscape here is just really, really incredible. The thought of doing this 20 years ago or something like that is it's absolutely unthinkable. So it's a one of a kind opportunity, and you should take advantage of it if you're interested in things like this and how the land looks and how the land works. One more West Virginia, New River Gorge Bridge. Where is the bridge? LiDAR processes bridges out, it processes buildings out. Of course, it can be made to process the trees and bushes out like you see here. So you just don't see the New River Gorge Bridge there, but it would be connecting the roads there. That's 19 cutting across the landscape. This is a cool spot to zoom in on. We'll go down here to Fayette Station on the New River for the boaters out there. If you wondered why there's a rapid at Fayette Station, it's actually because this huge fan of boulders that's come out of Wolf Creek here is like necked the river down. It's actually kind of like a Grand Canyon style rapid. So end up with a huge wave train over here just because the river is like really constricted there. Really cool to see that. Got all your switchbacks coming up here to get up to the top of the plateau there where Fayetteville is. So West Virginia landslide tool works basically the same as the national map. It's going to be showing you a similar thing, but if you're on national map and you go to West Virginia, you're not going to find that same resolution of LiDAR there, right? So what do you do with LiDAR as a geologist? Well, you assess landslide hazard. You look for karst and sinkholes. That's actually one more thing that's worth a glance here. We'll go to Rye Cove, Virginia. Rye Cove, Virginia is famous actually for a tornado back in the 1920s. It also has absolutely exceptional number of sinkholes in it. A lot of limestone bedrock is exposed here, and limestone bedrock in the humid, rainy Appalachians dissolves over time and it makes sinkholes. That's what a very sinkhole dense landscape looks like with LiDAR. You can see they actually kind of line up with each other. And if you have a LiDAR map like this, you can follow these trends, and it's actually possible to start to conjecture about where you might see sinkhole or karst problems developing in the future. So that's one more cool function of this LiDAR data when it gets processed up into good images like this, right? But what would you do beyond landslides, sinkholes? You can use it for geologic mapping. You can actually see where rock layers run through the landscape in ways that you can't if you're standing right on top of them, walking around on the ground. If you spend a lot of time with it, you eventually will get almost kind of like a kind of an instinct for what it would look like in real life, I guess. There's a certain amount of being able to kind of like turn it into that 3D horizon view in your mind. In this video, if it looks like I have dark glasses on, I have these kind of yellow tinted glasses that I wear when I use it a lot because it is kind of bright. Like it's the grayscale of it, particularly the bright sides of the slopes. It will wear your eyes out if you spend hours and hours looking at it. And what I do professionally is sort of splitting my time between looking at this and then actually going out in the field and hiking, crawling, climbing, whatever it takes to get to certain features, to look at them and figure out exactly what's going on there and what explains what you see in LiDAR. So it's a cool combination of skills and like job demands. But wanted to like draw something. They got to draw something in a video these days, right? And that's kind of become tradition here. So this slide is a good example. Looking at the LiDAR here, you can see all of these crazy sandstone layers count them all up, there's probably hundreds of them. That's a few hundred feet. It's probably like maybe 500 feet, 150 meters thick sequence of sandstone there. Got this big chunk that fell out of it. What would that look like? Like what would that look like if you cut that open? What's inside of it? And that is where developing that LiDAR interpreting instinct comes in. So we'll see if we can lay up a sketch here real quick. So Catawba Mountain there is pretty symmetrical, and it's pretty long in the landscape. Like it's pretty long and unbroken, which just means the geology is fairly consistent along its length. It's got that on the backside of Catawba Mountain. There's these interesting little knobs in the landscape, and the reason there's a Catawba Mountain there to begin with is that there's a big thick sequence of sandstone that you saw that is just harder to erode away, and that's kind of supporting the side of the mountain. I need to change the slope there just a little bit. That's not looking so awful good. That's much better like that. And then underneath that, you got a layer of shale. And then underneath that, there's another layer of sandstone that sort of runs along the top of the mountain. And then way back behind the mountain there in the valley, it's actually another layer of sandstone that supports those little knobs there. So we'll see if we got everything touching there to paint satisfaction. Let's see if we can fill this thing in here. Actually, I'm gonna put my sandstone layers here actually like running across the surface. That might end up looking kind of cool. Okay. Something like that. And you might even see that last sandstone layer right at the top there. All right, that looks good. Let's see what we got here. That went well. That went well. That went well. Got to fill in some colors. I like that for that one. We'll do a gray for the sandstone. Let's make it kind of lighter. All right, here we go. I like that better. And we'll use a darker gray for that sandstone. Do maroon for the shale here. Pretend we can actually see that sandstone up there in the landscape. All right, yeah, we're pretty good here. Okay. See, we're gonna need something a little more pink for that, or maybe like a peach color. Very nice. We'll do purple there. We'll do something like that. Okay, so now we've got this kind of colorful layer cake here. The layers are tilted pretty steeply. They tilt about 60 degrees or so on Catawba Mountain here. And that's one of those things you want to go out in person. You could almost use trigonometry to do that off of LiDAR, actually, if you can measure over the ground surface. But it's nice to go out there and actually see what these layers are. And when you're seeing all those ribs of sandstone, that's quite literally where the layers are like they're like poking out on the surface of the ground. And there's so much sandstone on the side of Catawba Mountain that it's hard for a lot of vegetation to really grow well there. And it makes that really awesome pattern. And it in the wintertime, when the leaves are off the trees, the ground actually looks kind of white there because you can see every single one of those sandstone layers. So I'm gonna dress this up with fine layers here, run it in fast forward, and then we're gonna make the landslide happen, which is kind of cool, and it kind of puts all this together. So hang on just a minute. Okay, so that's going to work out pretty well. Colorful cutaway there of Catawba Mountain. Probably bring the spray tool in here again. Always kind of fun to use that one. Maybe kind of spray some vegetation here on these sandstone layers. But again, there's just so much sandstone on the side of this mountain that's certainly what you're going to see exaggerated in LiDAR, and that's a lot of what you're going to see on the ground there, right? So the sandstone is again the great stuff there. What happened to make that landslide? Well, that's a pretty pretty straightforward explanation. The mountain broke in that shale layer, and the breakage kind of came out through the sandstone like that and tore a big chunk out of the side of the mountain. So we'll get that whited out here. And of course, we're just going to have to draw back in what sort of the new landscape here is actually going to look like. All right, so there's the new ground surface. It's going to be a big slide deposit now that's kind of sitting out on the landscape looking kind of like that. Get that all colored in here in a moment, and you can now actually see to some extent kind of the sides of these layers where everything broke away there. So get everything filled in right there. Fill in our scar area real quick, which is going to be revegetated. It's going to be really steep, but trees and everything are growing in there again. Good. And that's going to be kind of this kind of like a hollowed out area there in the side of the mountain. And as far as what's in the slide here is concerned, it's mostly going to be that sandstone that that fell off the side of the mountain there. It's going to be a little bit of kind of jumbling in it. It's going to have like boulders and stuff like that mixed in there. And there's going to be a little bit of that red layer as well, but it's mostly going to be the sandstone, and we'll just kind of fill in its surface now. So that's now just part of the landscape, and it's sort of cutting off what was that really nice orderly trend of sandstone layers that ran along the side of the mountain there. So there's your new landscape with this kind of big lumpy slide feature now, cutting all those layers off. And that's the visual there, right? So like when you mess with LiDAR a bunch and you see that mountain with the big scar on the side of it, this is the visual that's in your mind. You're already thinking in three dimensions there, which is kind of cool. And it's very much an acquired taste. It's not it's not an everyday thing. And honestly, they don't even really like teach you that in school. That's something that you gain just from being around this, doing a lot of field work, and spending time actually learning what the surface of the earth really looks like when you can see it with this new tool set. So really cool stuff. Check out those links. I'd like for the USGS to get a lot more LiDAR traffic because it just kind of sits out there. I don't think that many people really know that it's something that you can just go on and check out with any web browser. And then, of course, if stuff's in the right place, take yourself there in person, see what it actually looks like, then look at it again on the LiDAR, and you'll start to develop that kind of instinct for what you're actually going to find on the ground, right? So hope y'all enjoyed this one, kind of a spur of the moment thing. The next one's going to be international. We're going to leave the Appalachians for a little while, but hope you'll enjoy it. Should be out here in a day or two, I think.